It began, as many gangland feuds do, with money that could not be repaid. January 17th, 2019. The suburban town of Swords, just north of Dublin city, bustled with its usual weekday rhythm. Commuters hurried from train stations, children played in housing estates, and gym car parks emptied as night drew in. Among those leaving that evening was Zack Parker, a 23-year-old who was already known to guards. Parker had cultivated an image for himself: flashy cars, expensive trainers, and nights out paid for with drug money. To friends, he looked like a rising star of the North Side scene. To rivals, he was reckless. Unknown to many outside the underworld, Parker was carrying a debt. He had taken delivery of a consignment of drugs, reportedly worth close to €200,000, from suppliers linked to Dublin's Kinahan cartel. But guards' raids had seized the package before he could sell it. With no product to move, Parker had no way to pay the men who fronted him the shipment. The suppliers were no ordinary group. They were a flashy young crew in Finglas, quickly earning a reputation across Dublin. Known on the streets as the Gucci Gang, they were led by the flamboyant and ruthless Jen Ward, also known as Mr. Flashy. The gang flaunted their wealth, posting designer clothes and luxury cars on social media, but their fortunes were built on violence. To Flashy's gang, Parker's unpaid debt wasn't an accident, it was an insult. That night, as Parker drove from the gym, a gunman was waiting. From the shadows, bullets tore through his car. Parker was struck multiple times and died slumped against the wheel, glass shattered around him. His passenger, injured but alive, stumbled away. Guards arrived to a scene of horror, shell casings scattered across the road, the car riddled with holes, and a young man dead at just 23. It was the opening act of a bloody saga. Parker's death was not just punishment, it was a warning. No one felt the shock more than Shaun Little. At 22, Little was already embedded in the same circles Parker had moved in. He had grown up in Coolock and was known locally as a low-level dealer with ambitions of climbing higher. He mixed with the Gucci Gang, sometimes appearing at the side of Mr. Flashy himself. But Parker wasn't just a partner in crime, he was a close friend. Their bond went beyond business. They were like brothers. When Zack Parker was executed, Little was devastated. Friends recalled him being both furious and heartbroken. He muttered about revenge, about finding those who had betrayed Parker. In Dublin gangland, such words are dangerous. Even whispering about retaliation can place a target on your back. Word filtered back to the Finglas gang leaders. They began to doubt Little's loyalty. Was he still their man? Or was he plotting his own move? The paranoia of gangland left little room for trust. It was in that tense atmosphere that another name emerged: Hamid Sanambar. Sanambar was an older figure, 41 years old, Iranian-born, and well known to guards as a gun for hire. He mixed easily with Dublin's underworld, drifting between groups, offering his services to whoever would pay. To some, he was a friend, to others, a threat. And for Shaun Little, he would soon become both. May 21st, 2019. The rural backroads outside Balbriggan are usually quiet. Fields, farmhouses, and the hum of traffic from the M1 motorway. But on that night, violence erupted in the darkness. Shaun Little was driving a black Opel Insignia. He believed he was going to a meeting with an ally. Instead, he was being lured into a trap. Shortly before midnight, gunfire rang out. Locals later recalled the sound of rapid cracks echoing across the countryside. Little was hit several times in the head and chest. Dragged from his car, his body was left on the roadside. The vehicle was then torched, flames lighting up the night sky. When fire crews arrived, they found the car engulfed in fire. Next to it lay Little's corpse, his body riddled with bullets. The message was unmistakable: another young Coolock man executed, betrayed by those he thought he could trust. May 22nd, 2019. In Coolock, grief had barely begun to spread when it turned to terror. Just 18 hours after Shaun Little was gunned down, his close friend, Jordan Davis, another 22-year-old, a small-time dealer and new father, was walking through Darndale. It was a warm afternoon. Davis pushed his baby son in a pram down a laneway beside Our Lady Immaculate School. Minutes earlier, Davis had posted a tribute on Facebook to his murdered friend. "Rest in paradise. You were a gent." At around 4 p.m., a cyclist approached. Dressed head to toe in black, hood up, face hidden by a balaclava, he pulled a handgun. Without hesitation, he opened fire. Bullets struck Davis in the chest, arm, and head. He collapsed beside the pram as his infant son screamed. Witnesses recalled the killer pedaling away on a distinctive red mountain bike, vanishing into the maze of nearby streets. Neighbors rushed to the scene, horrified to find a young father bleeding on the ground beside his baby. Guards and paramedics arrived within minutes, but Davis was pronounced dead at the scene. Even in the bloody history of Dublin gangland, this killing stood out for its brazenness. A man executed in daylight while pushing a pram in front of a school. It was a message to everyone watching. Loyalty to the wrong side meant death. If Little's death was betrayal, his wake was retribution. May 28, 2019. At the Little family home in Coolock, mourners gathered to pay respects. The atmosphere was heavy, filled with grief, anger, and suspicion. Among the crowd appeared a figure many already believed was responsible for Little's killing, Hamid Sanambar. Perhaps he thought no one truly suspected him. Perhaps he wanted to gauge who was whispering his name. Whatever his reason, his presence was provocative. At around 3:30 p.m., a silver Toyota Avensis screeched to a halt outside. 3 masked gunmen jumped out and stormed the garden. In seconds, gunfire erupted. Panicked mourners screamed and ducked for cover. Sanambar was hit multiple times at close range. He collapsed on the driveway, blood pooling on the concrete where mourners had stood minutes earlier. The gunmen sprinted back to their car and sped away, leaving chaos in their wake. The enforcer who had betrayed a friend was himself betrayed, cut down at the very wake of his victim. It was gangland theatre, a statement written in bullets. Months passed, but the feud was far from over. November 24th, 2019. On Clonsor Avenue, Coolock, 22-year-old Eoin Fishy Boland tended his garden. A postman by day, he also dealt cocaine on the side. He had been friends with Parker and knew many in the same circle. Guards had warned him his life was in danger. He had even survived a previous attempt on his life. Still, Boland stayed. Perhaps he believed the storm had passed. At 5:15 p.m., a car pulled up outside his home. A gunman leapt out. Boland tried to run through his garden but didn't make it. He was shot down among his hedges, dying in the yard of the house he thought was safe. Theories about his murder varied. Some said he had been plotting revenge for Parker. Others whispered he had knowledge of who killed Little, or that he may even have been involved in Sanambar's execution. Still others claimed he had made careless comments online. In gangland, speculation alone can be enough to get you killed. Boland's murder brought the year's body count to 5. The killings devastated families. For Stephen Little, Shaun's father, grief turned to rage. He was determined to avenge his son himself. On September 14th, 2019, guards intercepted a car carrying Stephen Little and associate Edward MacDonald. Inside, they found a pistol, balaclavas, gloves, baseball bats, and petrol, the tools of an imminent hit. Stephen was blunt with officers. "Had you given me another hour, I would have killed the bastard that killed him." He was arrested and later sentenced to 6 years. The guards had stopped another killing, but the cycle of vengeance was clear. In time, Garda investigations began to yield results. In 2022, Wayne Cooney, 31, was convicted of murdering Jordan Davis. CCTV tracked his movements, and witnesses tied him to the red mountain bike. He was sentenced to life in prison. His girlfriend, who helped him escape, was also convicted. In 2024, nearly 5 years after Sanambar's murder, an Irish suspect in his 30s was arrested in Spain and awaits extradition. Guards believe he was one of the masked gunmen who executed the enforcer at Little's wake. Justice moved slowly, but the web of betrayal began to untangle. By the end of 2019, 5 men were dead. Zack Parker, January 17th, Shaun Little, May 21st, Jordan Davis, May 22nd, Hamid Sanambar, May 28th, Eoin Fishy Boland. Each was young. Each was entangled in drugs, debt, and betrayal. The feud was not just about money, it was about loyalty, paranoia, and the fragile alliances of gangland Dublin. Friends became enemies overnight. Betrayal came from inside the circle, and at the heart of it all was a simple truth. In this world, life is cheap. For the residents of Coolock and Darndale, 2019 was a summer of blood, a time when gunfire echoed through suburban streets, when families buried sons, and when fathers were executed pushing prams. The feud eventually burned itself out. Its leaders moved on, its foot soldiers either dead or jailed. But the scars remain. Neighbours still whisper about that year. Families still grieve. And in the shadows of Dublin's gangland, another feud always waits to ignite. That is it for today's video. What is your thoughts on today's topic? Let us know in the comments section below, and I will see you on the next video.